Cowabunga! This is John, also known as Gamester81, and I'll be reviewing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The arcade game was released in 1989 by Konami, developed by Konami, and the version I'm actually showing you here is available on the Xbox Live, released in 2007, developed by Ubisoft. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, is based on the original cartoon, which aired from 1987 through 1996, a very popular cartoon. And the plot is you got Shredder, who's your kind of main enemy of the series, and he kidnaps April O'Neil, and you're supposed to rescue April. Later on in this game, Splinter, who's your sensei, your master, he's kidnapped. All four Ninja Turtles are available to play in this arcade. You have Donatello, he's in purple, he's got the longest reach, but he's the slowest turtle. Raphael, in contrast, is in red. He's the quickest turtle, but he's got the shortest reach. Michelangelo is also fairly quick, but he's got a fairly short reach, not as short as Raphael. He's in orange. You have Donatello in blue. He's kind of average of all four turtles. Now here's the first boss you encounter. This is Rocksteady. There's April O'Neil in the background. I don't quite understand what's with the bong sitting there on the desk. I'm not sure if she's getting high, what's going on. But as you defeat your enemy, your boss, they actually blink. And the faster they blink, that means the closer they are to dying. There is no energy bar on the screen to know how close you are. So you have to kind of base it on the blinks. There is Shredder. He stole April, jumped out the window. Now we have to go after him. Today, the Ninja Turtles are a huge part of pop culture, but they actually started back in 1984, part of Mirage Studios out of Dover, New Hampshire, by two guys, one Kevin Eastman, the other Peter Laird, and they actually was a spoof and parody off of the four most popular comics back in the early 80s, which during the time were Marvel Comics' Daredevil and New Mutants, Dave Sims' Cerebus, and Frank Miller's Ronin. Little did Kevin and Peter realize that their creation of Ninja Turtles would turn into a pop culture phenomenon, not only releasing comic books, they had a number of TV series, they have 4 major motion pictures, a toy line still going on today, and a whole bunch of video games. Throughout this game, you'll encounter a number of enemies, including these mechanical Mousers. There's the Foot Clan, which, depending on what color they're on, the white guys here in the white have samurais. The purple guys will actually hold you. There's ones that have bombs, ones that fire at you as well. It does get a lot more challenging throughout the game, and the more players that are actually playing this arcade, the harder and more enemies there are on the screen at one time. Fortunately, throughout the game, there are pizzas you can collect, which will give you health. But the one thing I do not like about this particular version for the Xbox Live is when you're playing online with other people, it only gives you a maximum of 19 lives. You cannot continue. So this game is definitely very challenging. It was intended initially for a quarter eater back in arcades. You have to spend a lot of money to beat this game. Start to finish this game probably takes around about 35 minutes to beat. Also frustrating about this whole thing about having 19 lives when you're playing online is you cannot change your characters. However, if you're playing just a solo run and you die, you can change your heroes throughout the game. It does make a difference because each hero does handle differently, as I mentioned before. Between each sequence and scene, when you defeat your boss, you do get these mini cutscenes, which really add to the story of this game. And as you play it, you'll also notice that there's different objects you can hit, and it will actually defeat your enemies as well. You do already have your own weapons, so unlike other fighting games, like Final Fight that would later be released, you can't pick up additional weapons, but you can kind of hit things that will make them fly and attack your enemies that way. You also have these barrels you can hit, which will light it, and they'll blow up and destroy your enemies that way. When Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles actually were released in Europe, initially they were actually called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. I guess they felt that the whole ninja thing was a bit too violent. They want to become heroes, not necessarily ninjas. This arcade was ported to a number of home platforms, including the Atari ST computer, Commodore 64, the Amstrad computer, but most notably it was also released for the Nintendo Entertainment System, released in 1990. Obviously for the NES, the graphics were downgraded, the voiceovers were not quite there, but overall it's actually a really good fun beat 'em up for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's probably one of my favorite games actually for the system even today. When this game was released for the NES, they actually titled it Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, because they had already had a previous Turtles game for the NES system. One thing that I thought was really cool was that when Konami released the port for the NES, they added 2 new scenes, added new enemies, including Baxter Stockman. They also extended previous scenes for the arcade, so it does follow the same story. It is similar into that regard, but it was really cool that they added these new scenes to the NES port. The official sequel to this arcade was called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Turtles in Time, released also by Konami in the arcades in 1991. In 1992, Konami ported it to the Super Nintendo, which is actually a pretty good port for the arcade as well. For me, this is the beginning of what Konami would release a number of great beat-em-up games in the arcade, including The Simpsons Arcade as well as X-Men Arcade. Both are great beat-em-ups. Both were released after this game, and to me, this is the one that really started it all. After Krang is defeated, Shredder is the final boss of this game, and he divides into two, so you have to make sure you're hitting the right Shredder. In order to know who's right and who's wrong, eventually the false Shredder's helmet will fall off. That way you kind of know which one you're hitting and know which one to focus on. Overall, this is a really fun beat-em-up arcade game. The graphics and gameplay hold up fairly well even today. The only thing I do not like about this port is that when you're playing online, which is a fantastic idea, you can play up to 4 players online on Xbox Live, that you can only have 19 lives. I think that's lame. I think you should be able to change your characters while you're playing as well online if that character is not already being played with. In a nutshell, or should I say in a turtle shell, I learned a lot of vocabulary watching the Turtles growing up, including words like cowabunga, dude, and other things. It's a great franchise, great game. Definitely check it out. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.